We are not slaves of our genes, we are masters of the gene. We can turn on and turn off the genes as per our lifestyle. Now there are very simple steps to improve gut microbiome. Another interesting concept, that is non-exercise activity thermogenesis.
I invite Dr. Rohit Modi to speak on how to reverse autoimmune disease.
Now, what do I mean by holistic approach? Whenever we are looking at reversing a chronic illness like autoimmune condition, I would say there are three major pillars to it. One is the whole food plant-based diet, which my previous speakers have extensively spoken about. Then there is an aspect of physical activity, and then there is a mind aspect, which you can term it as mindfulness, mind relaxation, whichever way you're comfortable with. The major work which has been done, which inspired me a lot, is Dr. Brooke Goldner's work. Amazing lady. She herself had lupus. She reversed it, and now she has formed a proper protocol. She has written a wonderful book, which is known as Goodbye Lupus. I would really recommend all to read this. Now, the first and the foremost, what is whole food plant-based diet? It means we are eliminating the processed food, animal food, refined oil, and focusing on plant-based diet, especially a good proportion of salads. A good way to start is increasing the raw food amount in your diet from probably 20-30% to the 50 or 60% mark. And a power plate concept, which has been promoted by PCRM, Dr. Neil Barnard's group, suggests that if we have a good quantity of grains, fruits, vegetables and legumes in a decent proportion in our diet, we are able to get all nutrients and minerals except vitamin B12 and D3, which a lot of, I feel, my non-vegetarian patients are also deficient in, which requires supplements. There is a nutritarian diet concept by Joey Fullman, which is on similar lines, and he speaks about different food groups, which he says G-bombs, which includes greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries and seeds. Now, Dr. Brooke Goldner has basically made it very simple. What she is focusing is that if we have enough quantity of raw greens with flax seeds or chia seeds, which are amazing source of omega-3 fatty acids, which are anti-inflammatory in nature. I'm going to also discuss a bit more about the anti-inflammatory action in the subsequent slides. This combination is the one which reverses the illness. For a very simple way to understand is, if you're having green leafy vegetables, they are very high in carotenoids and fat-soluble vitamins. So if you have got an unprocessed source of fat which can help us increase the absorption of these carotenoids and fat-soluble vitamins, it can be a game changer. And that's what we are looking at. And then add a fruit for flavor. Now we have to understand the sources of inflammation. One is the primary source of inflammation is arachidonic acid. Now in a med school, we always found out ways to control inflammation once it has set in. But we were not taught what was the source of inflammation. And the source of inflammation, one of the important sources, is our food plate itself. And arachidonic acid is one of the precursors for a lot of inflammatory mediators. And if you see, it exclusively comes from animal source, whether it is dairy or meat. And this is where we can see how from the membrane phospholipids, arachidonic acid is formed, and it gives rise to various inflammatory mediators. Now, when we have a huge quantity of flax seeds, chia seeds, it gives us ALA. And this ultimately gives rise to anti-inflammatory mediators. So, if we are, eliminating animal products, processed food and refined oils, the omega-6 pathway is blocked and the enzyme is exclusively available for the anti-inflammatory pathway. That's where, when you're stopping the inflammatory intake and you're taking in the anti-inflammatory intake in a very large quantity, especially flaxseed, chia seeds, your body starts reversing the inflammation. And this is not only true for autoimmune diseases, This is true for any chronic illness. It is a well proven fact when we are talking about coronary artery disease, diabetes, or any other chronic illness. There's a lot of inflammation which is involved. Now, another study which was done was effects to see the effects of very low fat vegan diet. Basically, the study focused on raw plant based diet in patients with rheumatoid arthritis. So there was a decrease in fat, protein, energy, and a significant increase in carbohydrate intake. But mind you, this is complex carbohydrates. These are not refined or processed carbohydrates. And all the measures of rheumatoid arthritis decreased significantly. Weight reduced, CRP also decreased, RA factor also decreased. ESR was unchanged. So low glycemic, high fiber, low protein diet could mediate inflammation by decreasing pro-inflammatory genes. We are not slaves of our genes, we are masters of the gene. We can turn on and turn off the genes as per our lifestyle. We can live by design, not by default. And basically it also improved insulin sensitivity, and this was even after significant reduction consideration in inflammatory markers due to weight loss. So a lot of physicians understand that if there is a weight loss, there's going to be decrease in the inflammatory markers. Now this is accepted by all endocrinologists as well. But we need to understand when we are on the raw food plant-based diet, that time the reduction in inflammation is beyond the weight loss or the fat loss, and that is where it is important. So dietary fiber deprived gut microbiota degrades the colonic mucus barrier and enhances the pathogen susceptibility, which gets disrupted if you are having a fiber deficient diet. And this causes translocation of certain gut pathobiome to the liver, which triggers autoimmune responses. Now, in ophthalmology, we know that certain patients who are prone to develop autoimmune conditions with a HLA-B27, if it is present, in these patients, if they have a fiber deficient diet, there can be a translocation which can trigger autoimmunity. Now, there are very simple steps to improve gut microbiome. If you are having fermented foods, we are having a lot of fiber. If you are just having enough legumes in your diet, trust me, you are having enough fiber in your diet. Obviously, processed and ultra processed foods needs to be out. We are going to talk about the stress part later. And rampant use of antibiotics needs to be prevented. One of the most common indications for antibiotics is common cold and cough, which is viral, which would anyways get treated on its own if left the way it is. And then if we have a good exercise, sleep, sir has already stressed a lot upon, and avoiding disinfectants. So one of the things which is there is sulforaphane. Now, it is amazing that sulforaphane reduces the oxidative stress, and it also helps in controlling inflammation. So, whole food plant-based diet overall has an anti-inflammatory effect. But we also need to understand the patients who are having a chronic illness, they need to go to a hyper-nourishment place. See, one thing is that you're having a routine food, but now what you have done is you have stopped your processed food, dairy and meat, and then you're continuing with your regular diet. This is fantastic for a person who just wants to gain fitness. But if somebody is already ill, having a chronic illness, that time the intake of raw vegetables and something like flaxseed, chia seeds needs to be taken to another level, and their elimination of the inflammatory foods has to be completely gone down to zero. It cannot be reduced slightly. You may not see major effects. So that's where I understood the concept of love yourself, heal yourself, and heal from within. Forgiveness I'm going to speak about in my subsequent slide. Yeah, we need to love ourselves first, and self-love is not being about selfish. It's being about mental, physical and emotional well-being. And that's where I really love this book. What he talks about is 20-20-20 formula. 20 minutes of rigorous exercise, 20 minutes of meditation or being in silence, and 20 minutes of sharpening the saw, reading a book or something. One of the things which I really love, a simplified form of HIITT, a nitric oxide dump. It's an anti-gravity exercise, so your major muscle masses gets activated, and it can be done in 15 minutes. You can do it in a washroom, your cabin, anywhere. And morning we are fasting, sugar starved. So if you are doing a zone 2 exercise, I recently came to know about zone 2 because I was running. So more likely to burn fat, and you may have a more heavier breakfast, and you tend to eat mindfully because you have worked out, so you tend to eat more healthy. But for diabetics, be careful, avoid hypoglycemia. Another interesting concept, that is non-exercise activity thermogenesis, like doing small chores at home, using staircase instead of the elevator, going to the market, walking or taking a cycle. These small things are going to do wonders for you and for the environment as well. Well, most of the things in our life, when we see the stress part, we are not satisfied with certain situation. I am young than most of the people over here, but in my little experience, what I have realized is that most of the time there is no glass which is existing at all. And these are the 4 mantras. This is again thing which I have learned from my guru. Health, wealth, relationship and time. And when we use these 4 mantras, I love you, I am sorry, please forgive me, thank you for this, it works amazingly well. And this is what I believe about the forgiveness therapy. Thank you.